primary doctor, they're not knowledgeable about disability people or my disability itself. I don't feel like I could be comfortable enough to talk about some deep topics that I wanted to.
Within our culture, we make decisions as a group, like as a family. And I sense a lot of healthcare professionals get annoyed by that because it's not only just me and my husband's decision. I have to talk to my mom, I have to talk to his family. Like, it's a long process.
Entonces creo que una de las limitantes en lo personal sigue siendo el idioma. Aún así, muchas de las veces nos hemos topado con que el intérprete no comparte como las mismas palabras, no utiliza los mismos términos. Si yo digo una palabra y ellos lo interpretan de otra manera, se pierde completamente lo que uno quiere expresar.
I have to have guardian consent to do things, and I had a doctor who wasn't as understanding of my cognitive learning. And she was just being so impatient with me and was like, oh, fine, she's having a meltdown, get me when she's ready. I had another doctor who wouldn't even acknowledge me and wouldn't even look at me in the eyes. And I had said, I'm sitting right here, you can talk to me. I may not understand what you're saying, but I do ask questions.
I definitely see the difference between going to see a therapist who is of Southeast Asian descent and a therapist who isn't. The insensitivity around culture, there's not really a conversation.
My dad contracted COVID. We take him to the ER and they told us my dad's lungs are really bad and he needs to be ventilated. Asked for my mom's permission. Called back 5 minutes later, he was already ventilated. From a cultural and religious perspective, we cannot pull a ventilator off of a person. The person actually has to die on their own. So when they started telling us that, they told us that there was this policy that it's called the end of life policy, where if you decide to pull the ventilator, then the rest of the family members are allowed to come and say bye to them. Well, that was an issue because we couldn't pull the ventilator because of our religious beliefs. There were a lot of nurses and a lot of doctors that were just rude and very dismissive about our concerns, very dismissive of, the questions we had. The lady was so upset and was like, you know what? I'm gonna call the security. And I'm supposed to leave my dad, who's unconscious, in the care of these individuals that are threatening to call security on me. So I literally had to leave that day, parked in the car, and sobbed the entire time because I had no control over what was happening. Then I called the supervisor. I explained to him the situation. I said, this is not equitable policy. You guys had a Caucasian family in mind when you were making the policy. And he got really upset with me and he's like, you know what? That is so offensive, and hung up the phone on me. Religiously, I know my dad was meant to die. I'm okay with the fact that he left, this world. How people made me feel and how people made my family feel is something that I still struggle with to this day.
Insurance likes to take their time to approve things and what they cover and don't cover. It's a very much gray area, and so it's hard when you don't feel like there's a place for you, healthcare and otherwise, because you have to fight so hard for things that you need and wait so long.
As a queer person in my community and also a person that is disabled, I'm running into so many roadblocks that don't make sense and feel very stigmatized, as though you need to fit in a certain box to be helped.
Queer people are often seen as outliers in the medical community at large. It's so hard if you're going to healthcare providers who look at you and they're like, what is that?
I have trouble with them, especially doctors, when I go into an appointment. You have access to my chart, but you're still calling me she, instead of me calling me by my pronoun, which is, he and him.
I remember going from doctor to doctor to doctor. I remember one specific doctor. I went to her, said, hey, I think I have a brain tumor. I want an MRI. She left. A few days later, I went to the MRI, got it done. The next day, got a call. You have an appointment with a neurologist. She comes in, says,
I have good news and I have bad news. So I'm like, start with the bad news. She's like, you have a brain tumor. Because of that, I have so much mistrust within the healthcare system.
We got a lot of doctors out there that just won't listen. When I first got sick regarding my brain injury, a neurologist told me, oh, you have headaches and everything like that because you're old and fat. Makes you want to stop and not, back off and don't see any doctors, period.
Definitely representation matters. My doctors and folks that have cared for me in the best way have also been queer. We deserve to be able to be cared for by people who can just, down to the core of us, radically understand who we are.
I had amazing occupational, physical, speech therapists. Right now, my primary doctor actually listens to me.
Having a nurse, a doctor, anybody in the field to be like, Christina, I hear you. I have a doctor now who, I know you don't want to do this surgery, but how can we make you feel better? That knowing you need to do this.
I had this wonderful doctor that worked in the ICU. He was the only person that made me feel like I was a human. Like, he will come to me and say, hey, how are you doing? How are things? And eventually got really comfortable with him. I started opening up to him about what was going on, how we were being treated. And he's like, you know what, Farhia, you need to file a complaint. I said, and I tried to talk to my mom about it. And my mom's like, no, we're not going to file a complaint. It got to the point where the doctor was like, you know what, I'm going to take matters into my own hand and I'm going to call somebody if you don't call somebody.
Within the healthcare system, I have received wonderful gender-affirming services from with certain doctors that I've had. I have a primary physician who's also an endocrinologist and prescribes me my testosterone. She cares, she wants to help, and she's never judgmental or makes you feel like you're wrong for who you are.
Una de las cosas buenas que he tenido en experiencia médica fue en la última evaluación que le hicieron. La persona que le hizo una de las evaluaciones hablaba español. Entonces creo que esa es algo donde se preocupan de que el niño, como su primera lengua es en español, se sienten más como confortables y se expresan mejor.
The doctor that did my surgery on my wrist, very communicative with me. They got a still understanding and good relationship where I left and not feeling all stressed out and knowing that I was being heard. That's what it's about.
When you have a patient with a disability, you have to learn how to get to know them, I guess, or make them comfortable.
It's really important to realize that some of those healthcare relationships are some of the most pivotal and important relationships in our lives, especially depending on what kinds of conditions and things that we're dealing with.
Doctors or providers should really look into sitting down with their patient before they even start working with them, saying, hey, tell me more about you. Instead of looking at your parents and saying, well, what can you tell me about her?
The biggest thing is for healthcare professionals to be patient. A lot of us are new to the country, don't really know how things work.
Make sure your staff treats your clients like how they would treat themselves. It's also about common sense and empathy too. So it matters all across the board.
Listen and be compassionate. Definitely understanding where a person is coming from and meeting them where they're at. Especially for people who don't speak English.
Los términos médicos, los términos oficiales a veces son muy complejos. Entonces pienso que si ellos tuvieran una capacitación un poco más profunda en ello, podrían tener y ofrecernos un mejor trabajo, un mejor servicio a las personas que no hablamos los dos idiomas.
The institution has to change. It has to come from within. It has to come from the leaders. You need to have diverse leaders in order for you to have an institution that's reflective of your community.
If you can open up to cultures and understand, and not just think because you go to school all those years to be a doctor, you know everything. Life is an everyday learning experience.
I feel like every single doctor should go through cultural sensitive training, keeping themselves accountable.
As a provider, do a little self-check Am I really connecting with my patients or not? And is there a reason why I'm not?
They definitely need to learn more about Somali culture, about the intricacies of, how policies affect people differently.
And so many other communities think that disability is such a taboo and such a stigma to talk about it. So why not go out there and sit down with communities and be like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's create like a pathway for the younger generation, for the older generation.
The most important thing I would like healthcare providers to know, you cannot provide care to people that you do not understand.